What happens when a team's excuses run out and the receipts are exposed on live television? That's exactly what went down with the Atlanta Dream, a franchise that thought it could bend the narrative, shift the blame, and downplay the electric rise of Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. But when the cameras kept rolling and when fans refused to stay silent, the truth spilled out for the world to see. For weeks, the Dream tried to convince the public that Fever fans were exaggerating, that Caitlin's impact wasn't that big, and that the criticism aimed at their organization was unfair. But live TV has a funny way of cutting through the lies. And when you get caught red-handed, there's no walking it back. This wasn't just about one game or one player. It was about respect. It was about how the WNBA treats its fans, its rising stars, and the people who fill the seats night after night. And in the middle of it all, Caitlin Clark, a rookie who's already forcing an entire league to confront uncomfortable truths. Today, we're breaking down the drama, the lies, the receipts, and the fallout that Atlanta can't escape. This is Atlanta Dream Busted on live TV, the spark that lit the fire. It all started with Caitlin Clark's arrival in the WNBA. Her draft to the Indiana Fever wasn't just another rookie signing, it was a cultural moment. Suddenly, arenas that used to have empty seats were selling out. Merchandise was flying off the shelves. The Fever weren't just a team anymore. They were an event. And not everyone in the league was ready for that, especially the Atlanta Dream. When Clark and the Fever rolled into town, the atmosphere shifted. Fever fans, some who had driven hours, poured into the arena in droves. They weren't quiet, either. Every shot Caitlin took, every highlight, every bucket was met with a roar that drowned out the home crowd. Atlanta's players and staff noticed. And instead of celebrating the growth of the game, frustration started bubbling. They whispered about bandwagon fans, questioned the hype, and hinted that Indiana supporters were exaggerating their presence. But the receipts didn't lie. The cameras panned the stands. The sound shook the broadcast mics. The Fever was real, and the Dream's denial only made them look more out of touch. The fire had been lit, and it was about to burn even brighter. The first slip on live TV. During a post-game interview, the Dream made their first mistake. Asked about the crowd and Caitlin Clark's influence, a player smirked and brushed it off, suggesting that Indiana fans weren't really that loud, and that the whole Clark craze was just media hype. The spark that lit the fire. It all started with Caitlin Clark's arrival in the WNBA. Her draft to the Indiana Fever wasn't just another rookie signing, it was a cultural moment. Suddenly, arenas that used to have empty seats were selling out. Merchandise was flying off the shelves. The Fever weren't just a team anymore. They were an event. And not everyone in the league was ready for that, especially the Atlanta Dream. The problem? Viewers at home had just witnessed 2 hours of a stadium that sounded like a Fever home game. The broadcast mics were picking up "Let's go Fever," chants louder than anything the Dream's own fans could muster. Social media erupted. Clips went viral, with fans posting side-by-side videos. On one side, the Dream denying the noise. On the other, a roaring arena that proved otherwise. "Do they think we're deaf?" one fan tweeted. Another wrote, "This isn't an opinion. We literally heard it." And once you get caught lying on live TV, the damage control becomes nearly impossible. Instead of acknowledging the obvious, the Dream doubled down, fueling the narrative that they weren't just losing on the court, they were losing credibility. That first slip wasn't just embarrassing. It was the crack in the dam. And once it started leaking, the flood of receipts was impossible to stop. Fans refused to stay silent. What the Dream underestimated most was the power of Fever fans. Unlike past WNBA seasons, this wasn't just a quiet group of supporters clapping politely in the stands. Caitlin Clark had ignited something bigger, a fan base that was vocal, organized, and armed with receipts. The moment the Dream tried to dismiss the Fever crowd's presence, social media lit up like wildfire. Fans flooded Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with videos from every angle of the arena. Entire threads emerged showing section after section filled with Fever jerseys, homemade Clark posters, and fans screaming until they lost their voices. And it wasn't just Indiana fans doing the talking. Neutral WNBA watchers, even Atlanta's own fans, admitted what they saw. The fever had taken over the building. The Dream's narrative collapsed in real time. Every attempt they made to spin the story was instantly fact-checked by thousands of clips. The internet never forgets, and in this case, it never forgives either. The fans weren't just spectators. They became the investigators, the reporters, the megaphones of truth. And once they seized control of the story, the Dream had no way to snatch it back. Caitlin Clark keeps it cool. While all the drama swirled around the Atlanta Dream, Caitlin Clark did what she always does. She let her game do the talking. On the court, she torched defenders with her signature deep threes, slick passes, and relentless competitiveness. Every highlight felt like a reminder. This isn't hype. This is history in the making. Reporters tried to bait her into the drama, asking about the crowd noise, about the Dream's comments, about whether she felt disrespected. Caitlin's response? Calm, measured, and focused. She smiled, gave credit to her teammates, and brushed off the noise with the kind of poise you'd expect from a seasoned veteran, not a rookie. That composure only amplified her power. Fans loved her humility. Broadcasters praised her maturity. And opponents? They grew even more frustrated, watching a 22-year-old control not just the scoreboard, but the entire conversation. The Atlanta excuses collapse. After their first slip, the Atlanta Dream tried to save face. They blamed the media for overhyping Caitlin Clark. They hinted that Fever fans were just loud online, not in person. They even suggested that their home crowd was being unfairly compared to bigger market teams. But none of it stuck. Every excuse was met with receipts. Broadcasters replayed the footage. Fans clipped entire sequences where Caitlin hit shots and the arena exploded like Indiana was playing at home. Analysts on ESPN called it out directly. That didn't sound like a Dream crowd. That sounded like a Fever takeover. The harder Atlanta pushed back, the worse it got. Instead of addressing the reality that Clark's impact was simply bigger than anything they could match, they dug their heels in, making themselves look petty and defensive. Meanwhile, other WNBA teams were leaning into the Caitlin effect, welcoming Fever fans, acknowledging her star power, and even benefiting from record ticket sales. Atlanta stood out as the one team refusing to adapt. Media turns up the heat. Once the controversy spilled into mainstream coverage, the Dream had nowhere to hide. Sports talk shows replayed the footage of Fever fans drowning out Atlanta's crowd. Pundits debated why the Dream couldn't simply admit what everyone could see and hear. Headlines weren't kind either. Words like denial, excuses, and caught lying became attached to Atlanta's name. In an era where perception often matters as much as performance, the Dream suddenly found themselves branded as the villains of the story. Even neutral commentators couldn't ignore it. "Look, Caitlin Clark is changing the league," one analyst said. "Instead of fighting it, teams should embrace it. Atlanta just looks bitter." Indiana Fever fans take over. If the Dream thought this was just a one-night embarrassment, they were wrong. Every time the Fever hit the road, fans showed up in bigger numbers, louder than before. And when Indiana returned to Atlanta later in the season, it wasn't just a takeover. It was a domination. Sections of the arena looked like they'd been dipped in red, yellow, and navy blue. Caitlin Clark jerseys outnumbered Dream jerseys. The chants started before the game even tipped off. By halftime, Atlanta wasn't just fighting on the court. They were fighting to be heard in their own building. Commentators laughed on air, pointing out that it sounded like a Fever home game, part 2. And this time, there was no denying it. Fans held up signs mocking the Dream's earlier comments. Others posted TikToks captioned, "Still think we're exaggerating?" The narrative had completely flipped. What Atlanta once tried to dismiss had become a running joke across the league. Caitlin's rising stardom. What made this whole saga even more painful for the Dream was the undeniable truth. Caitlin Clark's star power was only rising. Every time she stepped on the court, highlights went viral within minutes. Her jersey sales shattered records. ESPN bumped Fever games into prime slots. And suddenly, the WNBA wasn't just being talked about in niche sports circles, it was trending nationwide. Caitlin wasn't just playing basketball. She was moving culture. And that's what made Atlanta's denials look so small. Instead of riding the wave, they tried to fight against it. Instead of celebrating the growth Caitlin was bringing to the league, they dismissed it. And in doing so, they alienated not just Fever fans, but casual fans who wanted to support the WNBA as a whole. Meanwhile, Caitlin didn't need to say a word. Her performances spoke volumes. Triple-doubles, game-winning shots, visionary passes that reminded fans why she was the #1 pick. Lessons the league can't ignore. This wasn't just a drama about one team lying on live TV. It was a wake-up call for the entire WNBA. Caitlin Clark's arrival proved that fans will show up, that energy will flood arenas, and that the league has more momentum than ever before. But it also revealed something uncomfortable. Not every team was ready to handle it. The Dream's denial exposed the gap between organizations that embrace growth and those that resist it. Instead of leveraging Caitlin's star power to bring attention to their team, Atlanta tried to discredit it, and it backfired spectacularly. The lesson is simple. In sports, you can't fight the wave. You ride it. Caitlin Clark isn't just boosting the Fever. She's boosting the WNBA. And teams that fail to recognize that risk being left behind. For the league, this controversy underscored the importance of transparency, honesty, and fan respect. Because in 2024, the fans are watching everything, and thanks to social media, they hold the receipts. The legacy of being exposed. In the end, the Atlanta Dream's biggest mistake wasn't losing to the Fever. It wasn't even getting drowned out by Caitlin Clark fans in their own building. Their biggest mistake was thinking they could rewrite reality and not get caught. Because when you deny what's playing out in front of millions of viewers, you don't just lose credibility, you lose respect. Now, whenever fans talk about Fever takeovers, Atlanta is the punchline. Whenever analysts discuss the power of Clark's stardom, the Dream are the cautionary tale. And whenever players try to downplay Caitlin's impact, someone always says, "Don't pull in Atlanta." The irony? All of this could have been avoided with a little humility. A simple acknowledgement of the Fever crowd, a nod to Caitlin's influence, and the story might have ended there. But denial turned a minor embarrassment into a full-blown scandal.